Yo, what is going on YouTube? I am Germ here. We're back once again with another tier list. I think it's been like a week since we've done one of these tier lists. I kind of wanted to let some of the different leagues play out. You know, the LCS obviously has the lock-in tournament going on. They're all the way up to the semifinals in that now. The LEC just got done playing their first Super Week. The LCK is a couple weeks in. The LPL's had a ton of games. So I think now we're kind of out of that preseason stage. I mean, yes, in NA we're still in that preseason, but at least we've seen some of the teams and rosters and players and stuff coming together. So I think now we can start to maybe a little bit in a lot of these leagues start making some updated tier lists, whether it's positions or just overall teams and stuff. So if there is anything specific you guys want to see, definitely let me know and we can get that going. But I thought now was kind of a cool time to start reevaluating some of the LCS teams so far. Again, we're headed into the semifinals of the lock-in tournament. We've gotten to see some of these games, we've gotten to see some of these teams play upwards of 7 games so far together. So even though it's still a really small sample size, it is at least starting to paint a much better picture than some of the preseason rosters did, tell us. So that's a goal today. Give my updated thoughts and opinions on all these teams so far just from lock-in tournament, and hopefully get your guys' thoughts and opinions as well. But before we get into that, I just want to mention real quick, if you're not already subscribed, definitely click that subscribe button really quick. It's fast, it's free, it's easy, it helps you guys stay up to date on all my latest content, and I would appreciate it a ton. We're getting closer and closer to 6,200 subscribers. That'd be a crazy number to hit. I would appreciate it so much. So hey, if you enjoy my content, if you want to support my channel, I'd appreciate that. Also, drop a like on this video if you like the tier list. I know they're kind of some of the better performing videos on my channel. If you want to see more of them, or again, if you just want to support me overall, dropping a like helps me out the YouTube algorithm so much, getting my videos out to more and more people. With that being said, here we go, kind of just doing an updated breakdown of what I'm thinking about for all of these teams, because again, this stuff has changed a lot if you take a look at my preseason tier list. And yes, teams will continue to get better and kind of change as the year goes on, but right now, this is what we got. First up is 100 Thieves. I can't remember exactly where I had them rated in the preseason, probably like an A tier or B tier team. So far so good for 100 Thieves. I definitely have them as an A tier. FBI, he has looked pretty crazy so far. He's had some really good games, he's had some really bad games. He's being super aggressive, he's generating leads, he's been a pretty consistent threat for 100 Thieves, so that is great to see. Also, I think Huhi so far in this year looks much improved over last season. It seems like he's continuing to get better and better as a support in the LCS, where at times they're a very good bot lane. They're one of the better bot lanes in the entire LCS. I might rate them like 3rd right now. They are pretty nasty, but last year, where a lot of people said maybe it's just FBI super carrying it, I believe Huhi is slowly gaining more and more respect from people and teams. I know he's really amazing at the set. He has a ton of awesome picks. Demonte, we've gotten to see some really nice games from him. To me, he kind of plays out like that Niski style, that enabling style for his team, and I think that's exactly what 100 Thieves needs, because again, they have huge carries in FBI, in Someday, and then even Closer. He had some really nice like Talia games and stuff where he's looking like an absolute threat. And then in the top lane, Someday, he's been a little bit up and down. He hasn't been necessarily the best top laner in the league right now. I still think that goes to Alfari, but Someday's in the conversation between him, Alfari, and Impact. So I think 100 Thieves is a team who I did expect them to start strong, because they obviously have a ton of existing synergy from last year, and I think that is helping them out a ton right now. And I think as the year goes on, some other teams might slowly start to catch them, as they have way more ramping up to do than like 100 Thieves does. But 100 Thieves still has a ton more room to improve. Huhi is going to continue to get better as a support. FBI, I think, still has a lot of room to grow. Demonte is probably still getting a little bit better. This whole team is just kind of still learning of the best way to go about kind of playing together. But so far, so good. They look really scary. They look like a threat. They obviously have their upcoming series with Cloud9. I think 100 Thieves is going to be favored in that series, and I do expect them to win and make it to the finals of the lock-in tournament. So I guess that means right now, I have them rated as a top 2 team in the LCS. So to me, that is A tier. Next up, we have CLG. This team's kind of hard to rate because we haven't gotten to see their full lineup yet. Obviously, Broxa is still way up in the air. We don't know what's going to be going on with him. He might not be making it into the LCS during the spring split at all, but what we're hearing is February at the earliest is when this process is going to begin. So even if he gets his visa done in February, that'll be after the LCS season has started. Then it takes a couple of days to get it in the mail. Then you got to fly over. Then you got to start practicing and stuff. So maybe he'll be back by like the 2nd or 3rd week of the LCS. Maybe it won't be for longer, which means Wiggly is probably going to be playing some LCS games and could have an extended stint in the LCS. And to me, that definitely knocks CLG down a peg, because yeah, a lot of us aren't rating Broxa very highly, especially after a disappointing year last year. But I think pretty much everyone would rate Broxa higher than Wiggly at this point. Solo did play for them in the lock-in tournament. He looked pretty solid, but I do expect Finn to be an upgrade. I expect this team to look a little bit better. Wild Turtle and Smoothie have not been a crazy bot lane so far. Some of that's been Turtle's fault. Some of that's been Smoothie's fault. I think Wild Turtle is probably the better half of that bot lane. I think Smoothie is really one of the weaker supports in the entire LCS. So I'm not sure exactly how it's going to work out, but I think CLG definitely has a lot of weaknesses and a lot of big question marks. How good is Finn going to do? When's Broxy going to come? When he does come, how good is he going to do? So this team just has kind of a lot going on. To me, they are a C tier team. I don't quite have them in the F tier, but so far, especially with all the question marks and stuff, I got to rate them a little bit lower than I did preseason, where maybe I had them like 7th. Maybe now I would consider putting them like 8th. Next up, we have Dignitas, who coming in the year, I had them ranked as like the 9th place team, and right now, I think I would have to say I have them rated as the worst team in the LCS. Now, they do have some things going for them. Aphromoo has looked maybe a little bit better than I expected coming into the year. Soligo had one really, really good game. I guess Fate God did too. Fate God on the Renekton and Soligo on the Yone to start the season. But since then, they really came crashing back down to earth. Soligo got like 4-0 on Zoe one game, then ended up going 4-4. Didn't really do anything with his lead. Fate God has looked really, really inconsistent. Dardoch has not really impressed me so far. Neo's just kind of existed. I can't really even remember any standout plays from Neo, honestly. And Afro, he has made some big plays, but he's also had some big ints and stuff too. So this Dignitas team just does not really excite me. I think their roster is pretty weird. Weird mix of washed up veterans and kind of just underperforming young players. Yes, maybe Fate God ends up being solid. Maybe Soligo ends up being solid. Maybe Neo ends up being solid. But to me, it's just kind of a weird team. I kind of do expect them to be the worst ranked team in the LCS. There is some competition for this position, though. But at this point, especially since I haven't gotten to see the full Immortals roster yet, or how good or bad they're going to be, I got to rate Dignitas as number 10. That's why I have them in the F tier. Next up, we have Evil Geniuses. This is a team who coming in, I had probably had them around 5th or 6th place. And right now, I have them as an A tier team. They came out first game of the lock-in tournament and beat Cloud9. That was really, really cool to see. And it kind of showed two things for us. One, that maybe Evil Geniuses is better than a lot of people expected, but also maybe Cloud9 is worse than people expected. So yes, it was a good win for Evil Geniuses, but then now we've seen Cloud9 go on to beat a lot of bad teams in their group and then barely squeak out a win against TSM, who had not been playing very good before then either. So again, maybe Evil Geniuses is a little underrated, so we got to bump them up a little bit, but maybe Cloud9 is a little overrated too, so I wouldn't put too much into that win. And then Evil Geniuses getting to play not a very strong team in the knockout stage either. So we really still haven't seen Evil Geniuses tested a ton. I believe they played against Golden Guardians. And Golden Guardians they fought back with them a little bit, but it was a 2-0 for Evil Geniuses. So they've cemented themselves as, a top 4 or 5 team. I don't know if they're quite as good as we have them rated so far. Again, they had a really, really weak group, with Cloud9 not being as good as people expected, FlyQuest not being as good as people expected, and then I think Immortals and Dignitas were the 2 other teams too. So they had a very, very easy group stage, and then a not very hard game after that. So I think we will find out a lot about Evil Geniuses when they go on to play Team Liquid, because Team Liquid I think looks amazing so far. So we will have a lot of questions answered. But so far, Jizuke looks a lot better than he did last year. They're also putting him on his comfortable picks and kind of playing how Jizuke wants to play the game, which is awesome. Impact has been an absolute beast to start the season. Ignar has been very, very solid. Definitely better than I expected he'd be doing so far. But again, it's still a long season. I think Evil Genius is kind of peaking right now. I could see them falling back down a little bit, but they are looking pretty solid. And if they can keep this playstyle up and keeping Jizuke as one of the stronger mid laners in the league, Evil Genius is going to have a chance to get like the final world spot out of the LCS. I don't think they're quite as good as 100 Thieves, so I'm a little bit lower, but this is an exciting start to the season for Evil Genius's fans. Next up, we have FlyQuest, who, again, this is a team, a lot of people, once they saw their final roster, a ton of young, exciting players that people are really, really hyped up for. Jose Dioto coming over as well with a big international fan base. People were really starting to rate this team highly. They were moving them up the list. FlyQuest started like maybe 7th. Then all of a sudden, people had him 6th. And then I saw 5th. I saw 4th. I saw as high as 3rd place in the LCS for FlyQuest. Maybe even a 2nd place on Twitter. And this lock-in tournament so far has kind of been a wake-up call. They have really looked like a young and inexperienced team. Palafox has been pretty hit or miss. He's had some good games, but he's had some pretty bad games as well. Diamond has honestly looked like one of the worst players in the LCS so far. He's just getting caught out randomly all at weird times. He has such just honestly bad deaths, like random deaths, and that is kind of limiting what Johnson can do as well. I mean, if your support is just kind of dying all the time, it can be tough. Jose Dioto has come in and looks solid. Licorice has been okay, but definitely not as good as they need him to be if they need him to be like the huge carry player that they're building around. So all in all, definitely this is after this locking tournament, I have to move FlyQuest down a little bit. I had them rated as like 5th coming in. Now, to me, I'm bumping them down to like maybe 6th, maybe 7th. I don't know. Again, this is a young team that I think can develop over the course of the season a lot. They have a ton of chances to, but they have so many inexperienced players, so many question marks, that I think it's going to be tough to get them all developing at the same time. And so far, we've seen a lot of these young players who dominated in Academy last year struggle so far in the LCS. I mean, look at what Lost is doing with TSM. Like, the jump up to the LCS is a big jump for all the players on this team. So I think it's going to be tough for them. I think FlyQuest has a chance to be good over time, but I think people need to slow it down a little bit with their rating on them. Next up, we have Golden Guardians, and this team, they have been fun. They went, I think, ended up 1-5 after all was said and done in this lock-in tournament, but people had them rated as the very worst team in the LCS coming in. I think they've changed people's minds. Their playstyle is really, really fun. Iconic is honestly way better than anyone could have ever expected, skipping over to the Academy scene. Niles, he's hit or miss. He has some big plays. He's exciting. He's fun, but he has a lot of random deaths too. He's kind of throwing some games. Stixace looked okay. Honestly, I've been really, really disappointed with Newbie's play so far. I thought he was going to be better than he's been. He has not been that great. And Blaze Olive has been solid, but nothing amazing either. So they have been playing a fast, fun, interesting style, which is getting me a little bit excited. They're not one of these teams that's just rolling over and dying, but they still have a lot of crazy mistakes. They still do a lot of crazy stuff. They could develop over the course of the year, but so far I am going to have them in the C tier. And I think once CLG gets their full roster in with Finn and Broxid, they should probably be able to beat Golden Guardians pretty consistently. But we'll see how that plays out. Next up, we have Immortals, who this is another weird team. They're really, really hard to rate because we never got to actually see their full roster. You know, we never got to see Xerxes coming over. They have Raze and Destiny. I guess I'm going to put this team in the C tier, but again, we saw their Academy team for most of it. I think they should be better in Dignitas once they get Xerxes, once they get, obviously, their full roster. I think Insanity is honestly pretty decent. I'm not really sure how good Raze and Destiny are going to be, and I'm not a huge fan of Revenge. But overall, I think they should be able to be a little bit better in Dignitas. If you wanted to put them down in this F tier, just because we have so many question marks about them, that'd be fine too, but I would not put them below Dignitas. Then finally, we get to the 3 big boys, the 3 big fan bases, TL, Cloud9, and TSM. To me, TL is the one and only S tier team in the LCS right now. They by far look like the best team. Even when they were starting Armeo, they looked very, very formidable. Obviously, they dropped a game to 100 Thieves, and 100 Thieves played well in that one, but now they have Santorin. This team looks like a different beast. People had question marks about how good Alfari was going to be coming over because he played on a last place team in the LEC. And, imports haven't just necessarily come over and dominated in the LCS. But so far, he is doing just that. He's absolutely dominating. He's looking like that CSD farming machine. He's getting solo kills. He looks amazing. I think Santorin is obviously going to match up really, really well with Alfari and Jensen, pairing up with them amazingly. And TL might have the best bot lane in the LCS. Cloud9 definitely has something to say about that right now because Sven and Vulcan are playing out of their minds. But Core JJ and Tactical are absolutely insane. Core JJ look, kind of putting on an MVP performance so far once again. This Team Liquid team is honestly stacked, and I think if everything plays out how it could, they could definitely be the best LCS team of all time. I think right now, in my opinion, it is 2016 TSM. I don't think 2018 TL is in that conversation, or they're in the conversation, but I don't think they're number one. Also, I don't think Spring Split Cloud9 is really, I think they're a distant away from 2018 TL and 2016 TSM. But I do think this TL team is by far the best on paper, and so far so good for them. I think they could have an insane run, and I do expect them to win the lock-in tournament now that they have their full roster. I mean, they have an absolute stud at every single position. So it looks great for them. I'm really, really hyped up and excited to see what they're able to do the rest of the year. Finally, we have Cloud9. This is a hard team for me to rate. I do think they're a significant step, not significant, but I do think they're a little bit of a step down from 100 Thieves and Evil Geniuses. I mean, we kind of need a tier in between B and C because, I don't know. It's weird. I do think Cloud9 is the worst, or at least right now, they're playing the worst of the 4 teams left. I would rank them below Evil Geniuses, 100 Thieves, because honestly, they haven't looked great. They played in a really, really weak group where they went 3-1. The only good team they played against was Evil Geniuses, who stomped them pretty handily. Then they went on to play TSM in the knockout stage, where TSM looked really terrible in the group stage, but then honestly, Cloud9 made them look decent. Now, yes, TSM made some adjustments. They had some different drafts. They had a different play style, but Cloud9 has not looked great. Fudge has really only had one, really, really good game in the LCS so far. Perks has been just kind of disappointing. He hasn't been bad, but you're paying him to be a superstar, and he has absolutely not been that. He's not even looking like the best mid laner in the LCS, so that's a little bit disappointing. Now, with that being said, Sven and Vulcan are playing out of their minds. Blabber's playing insane. They are making up for it a lot. But if Cloud9 wants to be one of the best teams, even in the LCS, like obviously Cloud9 wants to go to Worlds. They want to make it out of groups. They want to, prove themselves as an internationally good team. But right now, they're not even proving themselves as an LCS good team. I don't really expect them to beat 100 Thieves. But I think it could obviously be an interesting and exciting series because Cloud9 has a ton of talent. Over the course of the year, it is possible that they can find it and develop it. Now, is Fudge ever going to become a great top laner in North America? That's not a given. He could develop into that, but there's a chance he doesn't as well. And then Perks, obviously we expect at some point for him to look like an MVP this season, but right now he's not doing that. And we're hearing some rumblings behind the scenes that Cloud9's not really on the same page, that they don't really all agree how to play on the game. So if Perks can never get comfortable with this Cloud9 roster, which it's unlikely, but it's possible. There's a chance that maybe the Cloud9 roster never reaches their full potential, never reaches as good as they are on paper. And again, I do think Evil Geniuses would kind of be the next worst team. And Evil Geniuses, so far, what we saw was they beat Cloud9 pretty handily. Yes, it was just one game, but I mean, from what we've seen so far, this is where I'd have to put them. And then finally, we have TSM, the last team left, where I would put them into the B tier. Now, I would say that there's a pretty big gap between TSM and Cloud9. Like I would have TSM like here. I think there's a big gap between FlyQuest and TSM, but then I think there's a big gap between TSM and Cloud9. But they played a 3-game series where they took it to game 3. TSM beat them game 1, and then there was some kind of back and forth in the other games as well, where TSM looked really bad in the group stage and people were rating them down. But then they looked a lot better against Cloud9, and they looked like they could at least play with Cloud9 potentially, and that is a good sign for TSM, but I also think that's a bad sign for Cloud9, because I think it was more that Cloud9 isn't playing very good than TSM was playing well. I mean, we saw TSM get stomped by 100 Thieves in the group stage, and then they almost lost a game to Golden Guardians as well. They were so close, to just, it could have been really, really bad for TSM if they lost to Golden Guardians. I am happy that they had some better drafts against Cloud9. They started to look a little bit better. They went away from the Nard. They started to make some plays, but man, Huni is still a really, really big question mark right now. Lost has not looked good to start the season, and Power of Evil has been a little bit disappointing as well. Now, with that being said, Spica's looked pretty good, and Sword Art looks like he's going to be very, very solid, especially once they can get that bot lane under control. But this team's having a ton of questions about when's Haunter coming in, when's Cody Sun coming in, all this stuff. But to me, they're a B tier team because, again, they still beat everybody below them. They still beat CLG. They still beat Golden Guardians. They might not be able to compete with the 100 Thieves, with the Evil Geniuses, with the Team Liquids. And obviously, they lost to Cloud9, but that was pretty close. But again, I think they are significantly better than the bottom tier teams as well, even though it is kind of funny to meme on them and make fun of them. But that is pretty much it for this video today, guys. These are my updated LCS team rankings. This is after the quarterfinals of the lock-in tournament and before the semifinals of the lock-in tournament. As far as that goes, I do expect Team Liquid to be moving on to the finals against 100 Thieves, where I think Team Liquid will be able to take them down. I think they will be really, really fun games. I'm excited to watch that, but we'll have to see how that goes. Definitely drop a like on this video if you did enjoy it. It helps me out a ton with the YouTube algorithm, and I would just appreciate it so much. Let's run it up, get as many likes as we can on this. Also, comment down below. What do you think I got right? What do you think I got wrong? What does your tier list look like? I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts and opinions. Subscribe to update on my latest content. Let's hit 7K. Hopefully catch you guys in the next one, but until then, peace.